Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi, Amy. I'm great. Well, great's a relative term. I'm good. We'll go with good.
Great to see you.
Good to see you
I,
too.
I love it. I'm so glad we could get back together today and continue our discussion that we had a couple of months ago when we were talking about strategic planning and, really where people were in the process of doing that a couple of months ago. And it'll be fun today to reflect on if more and more clients are kind of moving into their new normal, or what you like to call the Abby normal, or are you still in a process of bringing people along, and kind of where are things as you see them today?
Well, it's interesting because so things are, I would say, the same. I don't think things have really moved along. I think people's mindsets have shifted a little bit. But the main reason that things haven't shifted is that we have no answers. No one knows what this is going to look like, how long it's going to last. And if anything, 2 months ago from when we talked, our situation here in the United States as it relates to COVID is much, much worse. And so as that reality dawns on people, it also dawns on people that we aren't going back to what it was. Even though you and I have been saying that for a long time, I think people are understanding that, and therefore their level of anxiety is going up quite a bit. And
Yeah.
that's hard on people.
Yes, it is. It is really hard. I'm seeing that too. And I've dealt with it myself, in
Mm-hmm.
my own life. Um, and so, what do you think about this particular situation? What has been made this particular situation so incredibly difficult to navigate as a leader?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a lot of leaders are grappling with that because they don't understand why this is so hard. My belief, the reason that it's so hard is because there's no precedent. This is nothing like anyone had ever gone through. And so when you have a situation like this, or when leaders come to crisis, there's usually something that they can go back to and say, well, this is like this. So let
Yeah.
me try this, and they can try something. But this particular situation, first of all, other than, maybe myself, the rest of you weren't, alive in 1918. But the there weren't computers. People worked very differently. I mean, the whole world was completely different. And so there's nothing a leader can grasp at. There's no go by, if you will. And so everybody's making it up on the fly. And
Yeah.
depending upon people's risk tolerance, those that have a higher risk tolerance, um, are fine. They're going to reinvent as they go. Those people that have low risk tolerance are stuck and they're not moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you see a correlation between a leader and how much in their role they've had to negotiate and take big risks, showing up strongly today for them in their ability to navigate people towards the future.
Absolutely. And the challenge is because they don't know what the future looks like, it's hard for them to grab onto a North Star. Well, we'll come through this and it's going to look like X, but
Yeah.
nobody can say that definitively.
Yeah.
And so you can't say that with a lot of confidence. And when you're a leader, confidence is a lot. It accounts for a good deal of what you do. And when you don't have that, it's very difficult for people to believe. And the longer this goes on, and we've been in it, 5 months, 6 months now,
Mm-hmm.
um, people are losing hope. They're particularly, with this last weekend and, the unemployment, the extra unemployment left, and all of the turmoil that we're having both politically and health-wise, and social and race and social justice. It's just too much for some people to handle. And it's all this confluence of all these events that one by one we might have been able to navigate. But you couple the three of those together, and it's just a really volatile situation, and leaders are unsure. They just don't know, and they're tired. It's like they've been pulling this big boat uphill, and there's no water in sight. And it's like, where am I going to put this thing? I don't know.
Yeah. So what do you tell those leaders, Mary? What advice do you have for those leaders that might be struggling to make decisions or to articulate a vision that they can't see?
Well, there's two things. The first thing is to tell them that it's okay. It's okay not to know. No, nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. Some people will say they know for sure, but we all know probably not. And so it's okay not to have all the answers, because I think once you give people permission not to know, they can let their guard down a little bit, and then they can think. Because if you're in that heightened state of anxiety all the time, you can't think. You can't process information. And so you have to get down to the point where you can at least look at the alternatives, which goes to the second point, is that you have to have multiple strategies. You can't have only one, because I could give you 10 different ways that this thing's going to end, some of which are really terrible, and others of which are, really, really good and probably Pollyanna-like thinking. Somewhere in the middle is going to be the right answer. But if you have a variety of strategies for how it might turn out, how it might turn out, first of all, get a clue on some possible visions, then you can work different strategies based on what ifs. It's basically your what if scenario. So as a CEO, you're going to have a toolkit now that has a whole lot more tools in it, with a whole lot more strategies that you might employ depending upon how it turns out.
Yes. And I would say to you, if you are a CEO listening, that your job in the coming weeks is to train your leadership team to think this way, and to teach them strategic foresight, meaning the ability to navigate in the fog without knowing and feeling more comfortable doing that.
Right.
And it starts with you laying down those steps. And, like you just talked about scenario planning, taking the factors that could happen and discussing, like a football play, what play are you going to run if these two things converge?
Right. It's the whole if this, then that, if this, then that. So think of the leaders at any time in history. I think now you must be a coach. And what a coach does is get the best out of their people in whatever circumstances they might find themselves in. So we're in unprecedented circumstances right now. And therefore our job as leaders is to coach our people through that and allow them to make mistakes and encourage them off of the fixed mindset and to the growth mindset. And so it's a constant walking by their side, moving them, challenging them, questioning them, supporting them, all of the things that a good coach would do. That's what leaders need to do today.
Yeah, because you brought up the risk-taking factor, and making it okay to make decisions, and making it okay to fail with a decision, but encouraging people to make a decision and lead from that perspective, based on what we know.
Definitely, because one of the things, and psychologists will tell you this, that when people get high anxiety, when everything is anxious, when we're in this horrible state of uncertainty and unknown, the only thing you can do sometimes when there's all these things you could do out there and you're not sure which is the right path, it's like, which door do I pick? Any door will change your state. Any action will change the state. And so if you want to get back into control of where you were as a leader, but don't feel like you are today, do anything. Just make a decision.
Pick a door.
Even if it's a small decision, just make one.
What
because
was
it'll
that game show where the doors and you had to pick a door?
exactly right. Yeah, I don't remember which one it was,
The
but
70s.
door number 2.
Yeah. Oh, door number 2. Yeah, because what that encourages is that short-term leadership, the ability to choose and make a decision, get people mobile again, leading their teams, and then the ability I call it ambidextrous, to work within the now and to be able to look at a future vision and navigate towards whatever that could be, even though it's socked in fog and you can't see it.
Right, because you're blocking and tackling for something you can't see.
Yes.
You're not sure what it is, but you have to do something. And so you can break your people up into different teams. You can do all sorts of whiteboarding. You can do all sorts of imagining. And you can have team A, B, C, and D, and each of them is set up to handle a particular strategy should that come to pass. I mean, for example, let's just be clear. The way we work is going to change permanently. So how do we adapt that? How do we bring that into our organizations? Our customers are going through exactly the same things. Yeah. How are we continuing to engage our people? How are we keeping them healthy and happy and learning? All of those things are things we can be doing now without knowing the future.
That's
so,
right.
So those are all day-to-day actions or execution strategies that you can be working on.
Mm-hmm. And like you say, it helps you psychologically to know you're in control and you're working on something.
Yes.
Like, what door should I open?
Right. Well, and everybody wants to contribute. The one thing I am seeing, which is really interesting, is that employees who would otherwise have been in the category that we fondly refer to as slacker are suddenly not so slackerish. and it's like, and they're and some of them are really, really productive at home. Now versus, nobody would have predicted that because they weren't particularly the best producers in the office. And now, in fact, they're very engaged. So I think if we kind of open up our minds, throw out some of our old paradigms, we will see different behaviors and potentially have better outcomes.
That's great. I love it. So as leaders are working their 2021 plans out, what are some final thoughts you have for them for planning for next year, the calendar year? Since there's more that we don't know, we're kind of in the same spot.
Well, I think what they can do is, in the couple of strategic plannings that I've been in so far this year, it's like, okay, let's plan for best case, mid case, and worst case. Let's come up with 3 different strategies or 3 different potential outcomes about where we're going to be in 3 years. And then what we're trying to do is pick several strategies that apply to all 3 outcomes.
Yes.
So that are going to need to be done in any of those 3. And then what mitigating factors do we need to put in place for each of those potential outcomes? And minimally, what needs to happen in 2021? Because at this point, I think it's probably unrealistic to go out too far because you don't know. There's too much unpredictability. We don't know when a vaccine is going to be here. We don't know if the vaccine will be distributed appropriately. We don't know if people will actually take the vaccine or whether it'll work. So there's all these things. So we could be in this for the long haul. So then what does that look like for 2021? It's not like business is going to stop. There will be business. So how do our customers want to buy? What are the opportunities we can take advantage of? And, what can we do as an organization to do the best that we can do given the circumstances? So I think there's a lot we can do for 2021.
Yeah, and what opportunities now exist for us that didn't in the past?
Exactly. That's what we talked about last time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Mary, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and you always inspire me with your wisdom and ideas. And thank you for having iced tea with me today. Cheers to you.
Great to be with you. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.